Today we'll be discussing the Internet principles of operation. So, Internet technologies. The Internet is a worldwide system of computer networks and computers. All computers that are attached to the Internet can communicate with each other, providing a number of rules and protocols are adhered to. So there are a lot of aspects and sides that we're going to tackle today. So we are going to start by talking about we're going to start by discussing, uh, revealing, talking about what a server is, starting from a server. So, what is a server? A server is a computer system that provides resources, data, services, or programs to other computers. In theory, whenever computers, it's basically whenever computers share resources with the client machines, they are considered, in theory, it is whenever a computer share resources with client machines, they are considered a server. Server have more storage memory and processing power, although a server isn't built into a certain shape, but it could be adapted according to their function and purposes, one of it being a web server. So, what is a web server? A web server is a computer which functions to serve web pages. Usually it has additional functionality. Usually it has addition and functions such as database server and file server. Why? Because web pages sometimes needs to serve data dynamically. So the computer is dedicated to storing web pages securely and delivering them to the users when requested. It ensures web pages are served to multiple simultaneous users as fast as possible, since web servers have very fast and dedicated internet access. So, now that we know web servers serves and delivers data to the web browsers, they are ready in accepting requests from software clients when needed. So the web servers will serve and delivers data to the web browser. So what is a browser, or what I just mentioned, which is software clients? A web browser is a software program which allows the user to request and retrieve web pages and other resources. An example of a web browser is what we use every day, or also known as the software clients, where they request data from the web server. An example would be, as you can see, these web browser uh, web browser software such as Safari, Internet Explorer that is now a Microsoft Edge, Firefox, and Chrome. Features of a web browser is includes bookmarks, which is to save the address of your favorite websites, the back button, history to access list of pages historically visited, a refresh page, multiple tabs or windows. I'm pretty sure you guys have multiple tabs open right now, just like I do. And we also have the we also have the address bar, which and also address bar, a place to directly type in the URL, which I will also be elaborating on more later. So now that we know the role of web browser, we are going to talk about the internet service provider, which is something that provides the internet, obviously. So internet service provider, also known as ISP, are companies that provide the user with access to the internet, because it would be impractical and costly for individuals and people and most companies to connect to the internet infrastructure directly. So therefore, the importance of ISPs, it's important for ISPs to give them access at an affordable monthly price. So basically, the ISP will set up a user account which will contain a username and password, and most ISP also provide an email address. An example of internet service providers, internet ISP in Indonesia includes Telkomsel, IndiHome, First Media, My Republic ID, alongside many others. And here's a tier list made by a local. Oop. And now that we know about the internet service provider and how we get the internet, how we get to access the internet, we're going to move on to the internet protocol, or very much commonly known as the IP address and MAC address. So there are often misconceptions and confusions between the two. So I would like to clear that up again and remind you guys that an IP address is the location of your device on the internet, while MAC address identifies the actual device, and MAC address is basically a physical address that cannot be changed. So let's start off with IP address again. So, IP address, or the internet protocol, is a unique identification number given to every device that is connected to the internet. It represents a unique location on which you are connected to the internet, allowing devices all over the world to communicate with one another. And as context, it would be something like a home computer is given an IP address when it connects to the internet that is assigned by the ISP, which is the internet service provider we just discussed earlier, and is unique for that particular internet session. We also need to note that the IP addresses that remain fairly unchanged are web servers. And this is what an IP address may look like. It can be used, IP addresses can also be used instead of typing in a full URL. Again, URL, which I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with it, but I will also elaborate it further on in the next slides. But this is what an IP address looks like. It is a 32-bit number. Now, media access control, or the MAC address. So basically, a MAC address does not change when you connect to the internet from different locations. Just like what I said, it's a physical address. It is part of the network interface card, NIC, inside your device, and it is made out of 48 bits, shown as six group of hexadecimal digits. Um, This is what a MAC address may look like. And we can just think that IP address as the address of house you live in. Let's just think of it like that. So you can think of an IP address as the address of the house you live in. It will have some unique way of identifying it, such as post or zip code. Using the example, the MAC address can be thought of as a way of uniquely identifying each person living in that house. So it is possible to move house, therefore your IP address will change, but the same people will be living in the new house. So so the their ma- so it is possible to move house, so therefore your IP address will change, but the same people will be living in the new house, therefore the MAC address will remain unchanged. Now moving on to hypertext transfer protocol. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys, pretty sure this is also something familiar, because this is something you see on you can see right now on the top of your browser, on the top at your address bar, HTTPS or HTTP. Basically, so HTTP is the set of rules used to transfer files or data on the internet. So as you can see, when you browse www or the World Wide Web, you are using the HTTP protocol, and often you may see HTTPS instead of HTTP. As you can see, this is a screenshot of my address bar. So HTTPS is an encrypted and secured version of HTTP. So it is formed when some form of security, for example, SSL, is used. Therefore, when there is some form of security used, it will turn into HTTPS, not HTTP. Hypertext markup language. So I would like to elaborate the HTTP again. I'm sorry. So basically, it is a rule. Basically, when you search on a web to search for something, you need to answer. It is something that you need to answer when you want to search up something, or it is basically the template on what you have to put in when you search up something on the internet or the World Wide Web. So moving on again to the hypertext markup language, or also known as HTML. It is we need to differentiate between the program language and markup language. So so HTML is a markup language used to create web pages and is interpreted, I'm sorry, by a web browser. But it is different than programming language, which is way more complex. But the HTML is used in the processing, definition, and presentation of text, and HTML uses tags which are used to a bracket piece of code. For example, this insert a standard cell in an HTML table, and uh, again with the bracket and ends it. So hypertext markup language, HTML. This is a short example of HTML. And now we will discuss the structure and presentation of the HTML. When writing an HTML code, it is very important to realize that there is a difference between the structure and the presentation. So the structure is the essential part of the HTML document. It includes all of the basics and the semantics and structural markup of the document. And the presentation is the style. The presentation focuses more on the style of the document. For example, such as how the document will look like, or uh, the sounds if it includes multimedia elements. These two features must be kept separate throughout. So, the author should have an HTML document. These are the three components. These are usually the three components, how web pages are typically created, with HTML as the structure of each page, and CSS, or cascading style sheet, as the presentation language used to style the HTML content, and JavaScript. Um, and the JavaScript. So the files will contain everything. Usually the author, when someone is making web page, the author usually have two pages, which is one for the HTML document and the other one for the CSS. And the CSS file will contain everything to control the actual presentation of the web page. Now moving on to the URL, which is, I believe, um, people are familiar with the URL. It is the address that is used in the web browser to request a resource web page from the World Wide Web. So you can check your address bar again. But this is also an example from my bar, which is Scholachmo. This is the web browser, and it will break up the URL, or the Uniform Resource Locator, into three parts, which is first the protocol used, the HTTPS, the domain, and also the file name, or often the page name. Lastly, we have cookies. I'm sure when you guys enter a website or anything, you may heard of the website asking for cookies, like cookies are required to access the site, or we use cookies for this website. But what does it actually mean? So cookies are packets or text file of information by a web server to a web browser that are generated whenever the user visits the website. But what does it actually do? So cookies actually collects some key information about the user, which is you, and it is able to carry out user tracking and also maintain user preferences, such as the store and maintain user preferences for a website, determine who are new and returning visitors, store items in shopping baskets, store login details, and help advertisers show relevant targeted website adverts. Though it learns and collects our information by seeing how every time we enter the website, it doesn't. It is not dangerous because it doesn't contain personal information such as credit card number or passwords. But basically, the cookies overall track the analytics of the user, which is you. But you do not have to worry since the information collected by the cookies will form a anonymous profile. So yeah, that is all for today. That is all for today. I feel like we concluded at, especially with our world today, with the pace of technology in our world today, it is good to know or at least understand the concept of the internet or the tools that we rely on every day. So yeah, and this video already tackled all the internet principles and the operations of the internet and technologies. And yeah, here are the sources I've used. Thank you.